in our life. We meet in Uctasimash, that translated into Spanish means good living, living well. And this is extremely important for Indigenous people. And today we have three persons that are very important people for us from our social cohesion perspective. They are very important because they have helped us to pursue our efforts, and they play a very specific and very important role in our community. And we would like to introduce them. We are going to have a round of introductions, starting with you who are over here. Thank you very much. Please accept kind greetings. Sebastián Latar is my name. I am here and also her. Her voice is lost. And I work for human rights in the Central Authority of the Maya Quiche territory. I am also sharing here with you a very important process to exchange dialogue. It is also very important for Maya women to participate in these processes, as our ancestors have taught us to do so. Noel Martin Toc is my name. He is speaking a Maya language which I do not understand. It is a pleasure. My name is Martin Toc. I, it is a real honor for me to be here, and I also want to thank our grandmothers and our grandfathers for teaching us how to work and what we need to do to have good living and to understand our realities. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share with all of you. That is again a language that I do not speak, but she will surely speak in Spanish in a minute. Good afternoon, everyone. From far away, we send you greetings from our Ixi territory. I come from Santa Cruz, Balanya. I am a midwife, and I am here to share with you the work that I do in terms of spiritual well-being. Thank you very much for being with us today. We have a different way of understanding the world, and for that reason, we are going to share the way in which we perceive the importance of social cohesion and the Maya world vision, as and how the indigenous people have way of looking at the world has contributed to maintain unity in our communities. We are going to have Martin and our other colleagues participate in this part. I'd like to talk about social cohesion. from our worldview, we live, in addition to talking about the social cohesion, we experience those processes of coordination, of seeking harmony in our territories. Here we have our center of energy that invites us to reflect on the different actions that we need to conduct in a family, in a community, in a society. What are the important elements? What are those important things that we need to understand? Understand that all societies go through processes. We are rational beings. We emotions, and for that reason, we need to understand life. We need to understand children and youths and women and communities and the different beings. It's also important to seek harmony, harmonization in our territories, to resolve our conflicts, and to share with others through seeking also to seek social cohesion. It is not enough to say the words social cohesion. It is necessary to conduct specific actions. It is important to analyze the relationship existing among the members of our mankind, where we need to show respect and understand the person, understand the differences in each person, to be able to talk about social cohesion from our territories. We start from our vision of the world to seek harmony and peace in our territories. Thank you very much. Sorry, lost the sound. I think that it is important to talk about social cohesion and peace, Maya world vision, and how this has helped us to overcome conflicts and accomplish harmony. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I think that it is very important that we understand that in this planet, each people have found a way to understand their own reality and their own way of connecting with the planet. And evidently, that gives us a clarity in our planet to adapt. In terms of literature, language, for example, and gives us a way to understand that in each corner of this planet, each one of us is different. The same is true of communities. Communities are different, and when we understand those peculiarities, and that those peculiarities are important because we all complement one another, we see how important it is to be familiar with what is happening with the other, and that makes it possible for us to understand that nobody can live alone. We are all necessary for each other, and we understand that when we connect. And I think that this is a task that we have to undertake in the country. We cannot say that one culture is more important than another. Each one of us will add to the whole. Each one of us are important. Our communities, what is very important is this coordination. From the moment when we are part of a community, and we find those ways of connecting to become a part of something, where part of a community, from the world vision of Indigenous people, we have been able to understand that thanks to our grandparents, we have a way to interpret time and the road to follow to accomplish our yearnings. Human beings, when we think we feel comfortable and safe, despite the fact we live in an infinite universe, but back to us. Thank you very much. What you are saying is very important. We talk about the coexisting of living in harmony. There are many ways in which we can make contributions and project the world and realities. We as peoples can summarize this in two words. This time, Alma Rosa is going to share from her role. She perceives good living, the way in which we perceive good living and how we build peace from that perspective. Good living, living in harmony, is important both from the spiritual material aspects. The social harmony with our communities and between communities is important. Harmony with nature. Good living means that is meeting the needs, good quality of life, and to love and be loved, and live with health. All of us living together with nature and respecting human culture, meaning respecting our brethren. Thank you very much, Ana Rosa. As I have already said, we have a different way of understanding the way in which others live, and to build harmony. There are other people that contribute to our cohesion and help us to live in community. Good translation for different things. And that is an important element for us in terms of cohesion. Today we have Alma Rosa, who was telling us that she is a midwife. And in our dialogue with her, we are going to meet her a little closer. And with that, we will start a dialogue among others. I'm sorry if she is too far away from the microphone. I cannot hear what she's saying. There we go. The energy of a specific day. And we connect with the energy that we bring into this world. And we had the support of a midwife to tell us a little bit more. She is going to speak to us from her experience and her role. As we have mentioned before, we value our energy, and we are going to build that energy throughout our lives. A midwife is a very important element for us, as they support our life process, and we call them grandmothers for this reason. Today, our grandmother is going to tell us how she understands good living with pregnant women, with families, with communities. She is going to tell us what her contribution is. It is important for me to say that midwives are an important part in our country. From our closeness with communities and authorities, we can learn how she contributes to communities and how she contributes to prevent violence against the women, and how to prevent the issues for women. So welcome, you can get started. Well, first of all, I thank the Creator. My participation has to do with the organization that I work for, where we have joined forces in different towns that are far away and close. We work untiredly to defend the work that we do as midwives, and in our health centers, we have seen approval come to the participation of midwives, of grandmother midwives. And thanks to that, we have been able to start conducting activities to share our traditions and, above all, our knowledge, experiences in the area of health. Our knowledge, experiences are a legacy from our ancestors, our grandmothers, for our personal and social development. From the personal point of view, I am a midwife. Our knowledge is profound. I have shared my knowledge about medicine and treatments, and these have been very important for the health of our communities. And about violence, this is a very broad topic. There is much to be said about it to prevent violence, to prevent domestic violence, and particularly violence against women. Education is necessary for women, and respect for life is necessary to educate about the rights that women have, the right to health and a decent life, to be able to participate and be heard. Unfortunately, there are people who are very violent. I participated in resolving an issue of a couple people, when they are fighting, when they are shouting to one another, they cannot have a dialogue. So what I did in this case, since you cannot talk to the man, I went to competent authorities to force him to stop committing violence against this woman. I was very thankful for this. And I also want to highlight the fact that there's violence committed against people in other environments. And we also resort to the women's defense system to help people. This is what I have done. I also regret that not only women are victims of violence, there's also victims who are men. There are men who suffer from violence. That is regrettable. What I have experienced in my life is regrettable. That is very hard to experience. So this is what I wanted to share in terms of my experiences. So as you can see, we have heard opinions. You might wonder, what does this have to do with the topic that we are addressing in terms of social cohesion? Well, it is part of good living. And when we speak about good living, we are not talking about good living from the material point of view. We are talking about contributions to the balance of families, where we approach families, individuals, to also talk to the state authorities to bring up our problems and therefore contribute to the community well-being. It has been said here that from our individuality as human beings, we coexist in the same space, and therefore we want to make sure that we understand the perspectives. Thank you very much, Ana Rosa. And there are other members who contribute to her work in terms of good living. She also contributes with medicinal plants. Can you tell me a little bit more of how you do that work, Ana Rosa? What is necessary to do here is to communicate with the Creator. We have to speak to the Creator to be able to find solutions to the negative aspects and to highlight positive aspects. To have good living, we depend on many factors and opportunities, participation, and also to practice spirituality and to use ancestral millenary medicine. because this is what our legacy from our grandparents is. We are so thankful for that because they were physicians and surgeons, and we asked them to give us that voice that we need to help living beings in our communities for healing, spiritual healing, and also material healing. We want to also recognize Mother Nature because we are dependent on Mother Nature. We are part of it. We belong to material aspects, and we also belong to vegetables and mineral forms of existence. Thank you very much for that compliment that you added. So this is an expression of the aspects that become involved in good living. And as we heard in the invocations in the beginning of the meeting, we call on the energy that comes from earth, air, and water. And we have a person among us who will follow me, but first we are going to show a short video, and then we are going to have a conversation with our colleague. Prevention, we also do reparation of harm done, recognizing mistakes as part of our Maya justice system to resolve conflicts, where we analyze and engage in dialogue, and we repair damage made. There are situations where harm cannot be repaired, but compensation can be offered in order to seek harmony. After a conflict, emotions linger, and there are issues where it's important to, again, share our comments with persons who have committed a crime, and this occurs through processes of intermediation and healing. No es suficiente. We have to also consider legal relations. We have already heard talk about some elements that form a part of it. We are going to try to delve further into this. So our colleague is going to talk to us about the importance of preserving ancestral traditions to preserve harmony, and about the practices that are followed and the spiritual aspects that become involved in dealing with conflicts, and how we manage conflict resolution in communities very well. With regard to your question, as a Maya people, first of all, we want to recognize that we make huge contributions in different areas. Our grandparents, our grandmothers, and grandfathers were part of a great civilization that made contributions in economics, culture, art, dance, music, in weavings, in the dress that we wear, and also great contributions in the area of harmonization. We have our own language. We have our own language. And we also have our own justice system. a justice system that is based on Indigenous law. Our grandmothers and grandfathers also exercised authority, an authority in our languages, Kamakpe and Kamakil. Ancestrally, we have been working without the use of a civil and a criminal code or the constitution of the country to resolve our country. So we use our Maya calendar in our vision of the world, through which we strengthen values and use values to solve conflicts. The first mission that we have in our worldview is to prevent conflict. We have three and letters, one word that is formed by three letters with awa. Our grandmothers and grandfathers have taught us to prevent violence, to prevent conflict. Awa is in our Quiche language, when you say awa, but if we want to translate that into Spanish, it would be saying that we don't have to break balance. We shouldn't disrupt the rules. That's pretty much the meaning of the word agua in Spanish. With agua, we are told agua tetactamic and tetochamic. And this last word I couldn't understand. And agua and other complementary words that she is using. She is using the word agua, 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 agua. To translate all of this into Spanish, she is saying, be careful, do not mistreat people, do not harm your neighbor, do not touch something that is not yours, do not commit abuses against other people. With these three letters, our grandfathers and our grandmothers have avoided many problems in our homes. We teach our children that they need to be careful with not harming a plant, not harming a woman, not harming the ground by throwing trash, careful with the trees. There are standards and rules as to when we can cut a tree. Why? Because if we just cut a tree, we harm our own selves. We harm nature, and we are not caring for ourselves even. Be careful with not using the words that are right. Do not use offensive words. If we do all of this, we avoid physical and emotional violence against persons, but also against our nature. It is not easy for us to understand, but we don't want to harm a plant, a little dog. They all have rights. Rivers have rights, and we must defend nature. Christianity has taught us that man dominates in the world, but nobody dominates over anybody else. We all relate among each other, and with that thinking in mind, we can resolve the issues. Human beings are very complicated, as my grandmother used to say, and there are imbalances also where there's violence, conflict. And from our world vision, we need to follow our standards to resolve those issues. Our Maya justice system, I say again, and the Indigenous law system helps us to solve problems with children. We are able to solve domestic issues, issues related with debts. There is no punishment for debt in the official law, but in our law system, in our judicial system, yes, there is a punishment if a person does not pay back a debt. Because if I gave someone money, a loan, I need to be able to receive it back. We have a law in the official system that deals with femicide, but we also understand that we have rights from the cosmos when we don't see the heavens, and there is, and we don't view it as part of our lives. Well, we will not understand the harm that we can be making to our environment, that the cosmos has to be cared for. And it is through these understandings that we can solve conflicts. We in receiving a complaint, we listen to the parties, we investigate, and we have the advantage that we live in the community, we live in the territory, we know our neighbors, we know the authorities, and for that reason, we are able to investigate and then call the parties to dialogue. We call on them for dialogue, and we act as intermediaries in the conflict, and we also resolve the conflicts. When the parties are unable to reach an agreement, we make a decision, but first we seek reconciliation. But if that is not possible, our Maya calendar tells us that we can decide based on the principles of the Awa, the principles of Cha, which is a council system based on the principles that we live by, based on our concept of the law. We can resolve to put an end to a conflict. Our justice system and our form to a way of solving conflicts find solutions. The we come from our world vision and not from the Roman system. That is why this dialogue that we are holding is so important. We need to start from our light, from that contribution that our people made. We also have to base ourselves on textures, aromas, flavors, and our world vision. We cannot start a dialogue without our spirituality. We say that we will be thankful and we will offer reciprocity when we are engaged in solving an issue, because we are all made up of particles, and everything has a language for us, has a language through words, but also through colors and through flavors and through aromas. But this all has been lost because we have had as other systems imposed on us, we have therefore lost our capacity to listen, to speak, and that is why there are conflicts, because we are no longer able to listen well. That is why here we are conducting an exercise in the midst of a context where, yes, there's a great civilization, but we are sharing our little grain of corn to build peace in our territories. However, we see that there is a very violent system that is a result of a different justice system. We don't look for punishment. We look for reparation of harm. We look for compensation. We look for balance, and we look to prevent conflict through education and through recognition of our mistakes. I believe that throughout this dialogue we have heard key words like the sense of community, and it has been said that we as Maya people have our own justice system. But we also have to recognize that we are a part of the state, and we need to learn to coexist with that state. And so for that reason, today we have a person who comes from the Quiche community, and he will share from his experience the coexistence of both systems of justice. First, we are going to show a short video to further explain what he will be talking about. The concept and perception by Indigenous people is simply the interpretation of the reality of what exists, of communicating, of community reality. I believe that work now involves strengthening the characteristics of each person, not try to take everybody to the same concept. That magic, the interpretation of languages, of legal concepts, allow us to be surprised and understand that the other has a strength that I maybe don't have, and that recognition helps our self-esteem. So here we are seeking to share good experiences that we've had as Indigenous people. And I'd like to say that in our legal system, we have experiences of equality and complementarity between the two legal systems, the state's legal system and the Indigenous legal system. Of course, didn't come from nowhere. It has has been the result of the struggle of men and women for years, and for that reason, we now have an Indigenous leader, Martin, who is going to share part of his experience and the way in which these both systems can complement one another. Can you tell us what are the main differences and the points of agreement between the two legal systems, and also how they can coexist and complement one another? And also, if you can share with us examples of the application of these systems, and has your experience been successful in so doing? Thank you very much, dear Floody, for this opportunity to have this very important dialogue. I believe that I can start off by saying, as you said, this comes from the struggle by our grandmothers and grandparents. When now we feel comfortable saying that we are Guatemalan and Maya Quiche. The state system needs to be accepted, but from my own identity, I need to be able to feel Maya Quiche, and both of those ideas complement one another. When we speak about the state legal system and the Indigenous system, we have to realize that both seek the well-being of human beings. Human beings in both systems should be able to develop, feel protected, and be able to meet our needs. So the priority is human beings, and I highlight the Constitution of Guatemala that reads that the ultimate purpose of it is the well-being of human beings. And when I think about the indigenous legal concept, it is the same things. This is a core concept, and coincidences where both systems are connected comes from the fact that we live in one single territory that we cannot separate. The territory itself brings us together, and then we have the way to convey the ideas and the legal systems and how we understand our own legal system better because we have it in our own language. When we speak from the indigenous legal system, and we want to transfer it to the state system, well, we find differences in understanding of the words, and so we always look for the collective uh, well-being, and I think that that is something we have to highlight. But we have differences in the state system and the indigenous system, where time frames are different, and justice normally in this just in the state system is more permanent, unlike the indigenous people, where we can impart justice, and we can also follow our norms. And there is a principle that I really like, which is that we impart justice with the same principles. And I believe that at this time we need to understand that both systems can complement one another, and how that makes things easier. When we think about the conflicts that are resolved, we can see that everything is directed to the institutions that impart justice, and that those institutions that impart justice will highlight the fact that we need to know one another, that response of the need that we all have, which is to accomplish life together among our peoples and harmony between our communities. And that is why I understand that the challenge, perhaps the biggest challenge that we have, is finding the opportunity to understand one another and connecting with one another, and realize that neither system is bad. The problem is that when we start to say that the other system doesn't work, we create division. What we are looking for is to understand that each system has pros and each has cons, each has strength and each has weaknesses. But there are many things that we need to discuss, and I will say that one of the most difficult things for our country is to understand that the indigenous justice system is very diverse, because each people views things differently. The Xinca parliament views things differently from the Quiche parliament, and that leads us to the recognition of the fact that there are 22 different peoples in this country. In that recognition, we need to strengthen the individuality of each one of the people. The fear is that we may want to impose our own model on the other, but actually the model of each one of the peoples has been developed to address their own needs. So we have to understand that models are created to address the needs of human beings. Human beings evolve, needs change, the amount of population grows, and for that reason, I am always going to highlight this. part. The best way to understand one another is to dare recognize the languages of the other, because with that we can connect. But if we are not able to listen from the language of the other, then we cannot connect. I highlight again that both systems are going to continue to work and articulate one with the other, and we should not try to impose one of the other, but think of which model responds better to human beings, because human beings look for well-being, safety, and develop in a community with harmony. Thank you very much. You have mentioned a very important aspect in our system. Our country is diverse. We have the Xinca, Garifuna, Maya, and Western people living in the same territory. We live, for example, in community, and communities there have their own system. And for that reason, we have to realize that we, the indigenous people, don't have a constitution as a state system has, but we adapt to circumstances and our culture. It is very important to recognize this and to add to the dynamics that can build all of this. You spoke about the assemblies. For those of you who are not familiar with assemblies, it's a system that where all the communities reach agreements, and for that reason, as a community, we have to accept the agreements that we arrive at. So I want to thank all three of you for your contributions that have been very important to start this dialogue. And I also want to say, after hearing the three persons and how they contribute to good living, that as a conclusion, what keeps us together and building peace is our own understanding as indigenous people. As it has been said before, it's understanding the world and how we care for our own systems. Of course, we have our own challenges. As we said earlier, we will live in a state, and we understand that there are different interests, but what is important is that we acquire insights from the analysis of what each one of us does as indigenous people. Before closing this dialogue, I'd like to say that, we need to think about what is missing in order to accomplish good living, and how can persons, institutions, and governments understand and incorporate good living practices in order to accomplish peace and harmony. Would like to give the floor to you to comment on this matter. Very well. One thing that would be a contribution for us to accomplish good living would be that we view one another as complementary of one another and as persons, because what has been highlighted here is that some people have good living and others don't live in good conditions, and those of us who do not live in good conditions don't have much to resort to. So it's time to open our minds and hearts to create conditions for all mankind, and also for all the sectors that are involved. We said earlier that forests and rivers are part of us, And for that reason, we need to accomplish a humane way of thinking and follow principles so that we all view one another as as beings, as living beings. Being good living should not be at the cost of my neighbor. Yes, I have to have good living, but I have to protect our neighbors and brethren for my entire territory to do well. If not, we cannot talk about good living. But we have to go from the individual to the collective interest. We have to look for the benefit of all. And there, governments have numbers, they know the context, and for the same reason, they must feel the pain that their people feel the needs of their people to be able to address the basic needs that we have a right to address. Based on your question, I believe that the most important task is for each one of us to find our road as individuals, that we find the essence that makes us different. And the minute we understand the reason for our existence, we go to the community to help it. And once we understand that we have limitations and virtues as well, we will understand that we need our neighbor. And when we live together with our community, that community is going to flow freely, and we are going to be able to connect among all of us, and that community will be able to connect with another. And we also need to understand that nature is part of us. It's not a resource. It is a complement to us. And in the end, many of us speak about doing things for the planet, while the planet will continue to be. We will leave and the planet will continue. So we have the huge responsibility to know that we have to feel thankful to be here and to have a story to tell others, because the story of each one of us complements the story of the other. Yes, to accomplish good living, in my opinion, well, good living is made up of many factors, as we have said. And for us women, opportunities to have access to education, health is critically important, and we should have the opportunity to display our capabilities for the development of our communities and our people. Thank you very much. We are profoundly thankful, and we hope that what we have discussed here is useful, and that you are able to incorporate these practices of good living in the work that you do. We face crises, conflicts, but we base our life in the principles that we have heard described. If there are any questions, well, we have only about a minute left. If there are no questions, well, we will close our invocation, and we will thank you for your participation.